everybody. I think I'm doing this correctly. This is my first experience on Crowdcast. So I'm going to click back over here so that I can see myself for a minute. It is such a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Before we get started, what I'd love to ask you to do is to pick up a piece of paper and a pencil before we start diving into our content today. I am Dr. Sharon Jones, and I am a K-12 computer science expert, and I have been in the industry for about 20 years now. And today we are going to talk about sketching a story with data, which is one of my most favorite things to do because I'm so passionate about thinking through the process of data not only being numerics, but also through the power of text and what we call qualitative data. So many things begin to come to be when you start thinking about all of the data that is around us. So I'm going to click here to my screen, and it should say on the screen, sketching a story with data. So I'm just going to, if you all could just type into the chat window that you are able to see that slideshow. Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it. Excellent. Okay, good. All right, so we're going to talk about sketching a story with data. Like I said, I am Dr. Sharon Jones. I run my own business around helping K-12 teachers and districts understand computer science and integrate it into their classrooms. And I do lots of professional development and strategy and implementation. And then I also run a nonprofit called the Dottie Foundation, which is named in honor of my grandmother to support girls in computer science. So what are we going to learn today? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about text can be data, the basics of qualitative data, and how to sketch a visual story. So I want you to immediately start thinking in your brain, how do you visualize data and what do you normally see it as? And most of the time, I'm going to keep that over there so you can think a little bit about what that is. But let's take a minute about what data is. And, you know, sometimes it can be seen as very intimidating. It also has had a negative impact over the years in terms of, especially in K-12 education, where sometimes we see it as a daunting piece, or it's like, oh, you got to show this information or show that. And instead of seeing it as a creative potential or a way to drive decisions, it's seen more punitively. So what I want us to think about today is flipping our mindset just a little bit to think about how we can use data for great creative potential and use it to potentially answer questions or solve problems. Everything that we do around computer science, around technology is all data driven. You all likely see this purpose since you're here in the first ever data science presentation conference. So that piece, we can check that off our box. But what we're going to look at today is your organization, in your organization, do you think about text as data? And so I'm going to stop for just a second. And in the chat, maybe put in an answer. In your organization, do you think about text as data? Yes, excellent. Okay. And would anybody be willing to give an example of how you may use text as data? Is it through, yes, it's also qualitative research. Excellent. Ooh, sentiment is a great one. Okay, so great question. Could you clarify what for text is data? Text meaning words or a combination of words and numbers together, something that wouldn't necessarily mean be able to quantify. So text would be anything where you have letters or letters and numbers together that create that. I like that. Finding themes. Oh, love it. Solving a problem. Yes. Excellent. So great. You guys have a great idea around this. So here is the definition between the two. Quantitative data are aspects of the world measured with numbers. And qualitative is going to describe a quality or characteristic. And some of you have already mentioned this in the chat of where it's collected via questionnaires, interviews, observations, frequency. And frequency is really what we're going to talk about today, is the frequency of how many times you're seeing something populate in an answer. So one of the mentions was finding some themes within transcripts, and that is really powerful. It's also, you can also think about this in finding themes through text messages, or maybe finding themes in emails. Right now, we have progressed pretty quickly in our own technological devices and in softwares we're using, where you may see when you start texting something that machine learning is popping up and it's automatically trying to do an autofill for a word. You may see in your email accounts where you may start typing something and IntelliSense pops up and says, is this the rest of the sentence that you want to use, right? All of that is coming from that qualitative data analysis, the frequency of how you're inputting information. So, and then quantitative data is, of course, at the crux, the main piece of how we work through content numerically, and also understand this, that in qualitative data, we can also code it so that it can have a numeric aspect. So for instance, if we're looking through and we want to put a numeric value by every time you see the word love, then you may make love be equal to number 1, right? So you can quantify it in some capacity. So today, what we're going to look at, well, we're going to do a little experiment here in just a second, but solving a problem. One thing that I find that's really powerful is sometimes in our work, quantitative data can be considered the end game final number. But in true life, most of the time, it is blended in some type of quantitative information, those numerics, blended with text or words, because text is data too. You all have already mentioned that in the chat. I love that you said, because it's information too, which I think is fantastic. And solving a problem, and when you're looking for that qualitative, understanding sentiment, what words are being used when you're going through and evaluating information. Now, one thing that can be difficult to do by hand is finding patterns in large sets of data can be hard to do by hand, but we can use computer software now to help us do that. And that, of course, goes on the back end of thinking through the algorithm and the conditional statements and how we go through and create an array that pulls out information that has similar patterns. So what I wanted to show you today is a great activity you could do in your classroom with students in presentations that takes a look at how we take text and marry it with frequency and understanding patterns that are happening in words that are being shared. And we're going to use something today called the word counter. Now, the word counter is going to count the frequency of how often something appears. It's really a fun little piece. But before we do that, I want to show you 2 examples that I think are really fantastic to get this concept or idea around text as data. So the first one here, this is a great website called Pudding. It's pudding.cool. And there is quite a bit of information on this website that talks a bit about the importance of using text or words, combination of words and numbers together to get more data or more understanding around the content that you're using. So the first thing that I want to mention here is let's look at some example. And this is a little bit old, and there is, again, more research is being done. But I think this is a great example here about emerging slang that has happened. And this information was pulled from music that children were listening to or kids were listening to, and how though that vernacular and that verbiage begins to become slang in our everyday work. So, like, I guess you all probably can remember years ago when Netflix and chill, bye Felicia. There was some things that that was burnt. I was trying to think the juju, which I feel like that actually might have been more shook. Yeah, shook. What is the other one on here that I thought was sort of interesting? Broccoli, which it represents something that is not on the positive side. Just some of the things that you see here that I think are interesting on how the slang comes up. There was in the research there, the word shorty that was used in a song was used first by one particular artist, and then became more popular in the second iteration of how it was used in a song, and became a pretty big slang word that was used amongst young people. Very interesting in that analysis of the words and how it became slang. The other thing that I thought was really cool on the same website was measuring repetitiveness. So something about music that's really intriguing to me is that we as humans like patterns. And as data people, you probably you already have observed this, right? We are very much, we have habits. We like things to be consistent. When we're learning something, it often takes us 3 to 7 times to really implement. But what is thinking kind of cool here is taking a look at some words about music, and how one, they both are 52 words long and use the same 23rd word vocabulary, but the first one is clearly more repetitive, but because it arranges words in a predictive and repetitive order. Now, I find that interesting because the music industry is so heavily driven on input from listeners, and how do listeners like to listen to music, and what are the things that, something that's kind of jazzy and snazzy that we can pick up really quickly. So on this particular website, I'm going to share this in the Slack. I'm going to do this right here. Are pop lyrics getting more repetitive? So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to pop over here to the screen and put it in the chat window so you all can see. It's a really great article, and there is an interactive element there where you can start to see how the algorithm on the back end of this particular website is looking to find the similarities between the words and shorten them so that it becomes faster. And in this particular instance, in this article, it's talking about compressing a sound file so that it will transfer more quickly. It's really interesting. I think you'll find that article super fascinating, and students will find that really interesting as well in terms of music they listen to and how they listen to it. So those are, bring back up my shared screen here. A couple of examples of how text is being used and then implemented in things that we're doing every day, and more specifically, things about how decisions can be made. And in terms of the second example is thinking about how music is becoming more and more repetitive. And, there probably is some of that's happening even before this day and age. But so what I'd like for us to do is we're going to do a quick activity. And so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to put this link in our chat window as well. I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to pop back over here to the chat and put this in. If you can see that in the chat, I'd love for you to be able to click on that link and open up this particular platform. This was created by two data scientists. It is a project called Data Culture Project. And I've really enjoyed the content that they have put out and how they have been able to utilize and make something really more exciting to learn about. So let me tell you just quickly about what we're going to do as our activity. We're going to take about maybe 5 to 7 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the word counter. Let me put a space here so you read that better. Word counter to analyze lyrics of a musician to tell a story. So I was showing some examples around music and how music is, because it's such a large piece of our culture today. And then what we're going to do is on that piece of paper that I asked you to grab and a pencil is to sketch out a visual representation of what you see on the frequency of words that is shown before you. What I love about this particular platform is that you have the capabilities to use what is built in that they've already provided, or you can actually add your own. So you can create multiple activities and content and ways in which you implement this in lots of different ways. So you can see down here at the bottom that here's the example of some of the visualizations that you can draw based on the words you see. So let's do a really quick practice here on what we see. So I'm just going to stop for just a second and yes, you can take a screenshot of the visual portion. Absolutely. But I'm going to just a second and make sure everybody has had a chance. I'm going to copy this again and put it right back in here. Just make sure we're good. Everyone have the opportunity to pop in. Oh, Crowdcast says I've already sent that message. Well, let's see if I can do it again anyway. I cannot. Okay. Make sure you've gone to the word counter. And it's there in our chat window. So the first thing that I want you to do is on the word counter, we are going to analyze. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alicia. We are going to take a look at analyzing some text that's already built in. All right. Now, remember, you can take this and you can alter this to add in all kinds of information. Now, one thing I want to note here, this little check mark right here where it says ignore stop words. So stop words are words that are things like this, that, and, but, because those are transition words, right? So we're looking more for analytics around a deeper context of text or vocabulary. So here, if we click on use sample and we drop down, let me move my window up just a little bit. If we drop down here on use sample, we have a variety of content that has been plugged in to this, to the platform. We're going to start here with using the music lyrics. So I am going to use Beyonce's lyrics as my practice here. And I'm going to hit the word count. Now, count would be what is counting the frequency. All right. And this is not perfect. So we're going to hit count. And what is going to appear on your screen is something you probably have used at some point in your career, which is a Wordle or a word cloud. It is a visual representation of the text that is being analyzed. So what we've done here is we have pulled X amount of songs from Beyonce's platform of work and pulled it in to see the top words that are used in her music. So the top part here is a visual, the Wordle, and then you can come down here and see the top words that are used in her songs based on an individual word, a bigram, which is 2 words, and then a trigram, which of course is 3. And then what's interesting is you can check here on the frequency or the count of how many times that particular word has been used. So based on this, you can, what I'd like for you to do, and you don't have to choose Beyonce, I would like for you to choose your own. I would like for you to choose your own lyrics here. And all you have to do is choose your back arrow to go back to the beginning. Drop down and choose one of the lyrics. Look at it, and I'd like for you to sketch out a visual representation of what you see. What words are you seeing, and how do those words fit into a visual? So I'm going to be quiet, and we're going to take about 7 minutes or so to do this. So Zoe, how we do this is if you click on the link above that says the database.io, the word counter, click on the link. And what you're going to do is you're going to choose a sample of lyrics. Oh, good. Okay, good. And what then I'd like for you to do is to just sketch a story. I picture a representation of what words you see the most of. Is it love? Is it oh? Is it ah? You know, what do you see when you see in those lyrics? And you can even do 2. Maybe you could compare 2 different songs. And I'm pulling this up. It should, I want to make sure I'm on the right screen here. Oops. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and refresh mine on my end as well, everybody. Just so that I am making sure I am in the right place. Do you have book editing skills? Do I have book editing skills? That is not actually in mine, but you could take some of these, your passages, and put them in this analytic piece. All right, I'm going to bring this up just so everyone can see the activity again. We're going to take just a few more minutes. I'd like for you to play in WordCounter and talk and be able to share your, see what you find out about the lyrics. Let's see for just another second. All right. I am going to stop sharing for just a moment so that we can have a bit more of a conversation. What I would love to know is, based on the lyrics that you all were able to analyze, can you type into the chat a bit of what you saw? What was one of the most popular words that showed up in your analysis? And you can just type it into the chat. Mm-hmm. This is really interesting. Is anybody seeing a pattern? If you're paying attention to the chat here, does anybody see a pattern of words that are populating over and over again? Oh, yeah. Yes, Ellen, that's what I was thinking too. I keep seeing the word love. And the one that I did, yeah, love. I was trying to think about anything else that y'all wrote down. Yeah. Yeah, right. That's right. Most songs are about it. That's right. Huh. Now that's interesting, Nancy, that love and the Beatles, but in bigrams, it shows up twice as like when it's like two words together. That's a very interesting piece. I'm there as okay. I'm there. Yep. Yeah. I think like OH is a big one. Love. Okay. So if we could think about this, like if you just notice from the patterns that you're seeing here, if these words are showing up on a regular basis, it's likely that those words are having an impact on the type of music or song that is being written. That is a piece of data, and it's likely we all have heard songs on a regular basis that have, you're exactly right on. There was a text about that. Love is probably one of the most songs are written about love or something. Michael says, how do you use love 128 words, 1,284 times in a song? It's likely, Michael, that is over the course of their platform of music. So what this particular database is doing is pulling lyrics from multiple songs and then putting them all together. So you're right, Alicia. It could be from an album. It could be from multiple albums. It just sort of depends on what you're pulling from. But so yes, that's very interesting though, that means he has created a pattern or an algorithm that in every song, whomever this is probably going to mention the word love because it's something that either people want to hear and it's proven to be popular. So one of the people that I often analyze too is Taylor Swift, who uses similar lyrics over and over and over again in her music because it has proven that people like that information. So thank you, Crystal. That's an excellent point, that word cloud shows the words in a larger font that are more frequently used. Confused about how to transition into a story. Okay, so think about this. If you're seeing the same words over and over again, what does that mean for that what is the story of that particular artist? What is the story of the listener? So when you start thinking about seeing words or text used in a pattern that is repeated, it begins to show that there is something there by that repetitiveness of that word or series of words together. To me, based on what we have seen here in the text, something about love and anything around love is something that we like to hear in our music. So you can think about that if you are an artist, you likely would want to put something in one of your songs about love because people like that. That's the story that's beginning to be told. You also can think about the body of work of a particular artist. What kind of songs are they writing over and over again? So you can think like Metallica is known for hard rock. So some of their songs are probably not going to be uplifting and squishy. How do they create that story of hard rock based on the lyrics that they are using? Somebody like Stevie Wonder is going to have more of a methodical body of work and it's going to have more likely information about love and baby and ooh and ah, similar to something like Taylor Swift. That's the story that's beginning to be told. And that story then helps to answer questions or shares the information in an easier manner. So when you start thinking about how you're going to use this data, that data then can be sketched into a way that can be presentable. The story you also can see is through that word counter, through the Wordle, that as the more bold words are being used. And that's a story that's beginning to be told by the text that is being counted. Would WordCounter be useful when you upload a student survey? Absolutely. You could think about this. You could pull out the responses and pull that in, especially if it's a text box response, and pull that into that where you can paste copy and paste content into WordCounter and see what words come up over and over again. I have used this quite often in getting information from my teachers in terms of things that have worked and things that have not worked. And like they may have a frustration over math curriculum, or maybe they have a frustration over testing, and that will come out in terms of responses that I received from surveys. All right, I'm going to share my screen one more time, and let's just look really here on the word counter. As I mentioned, this is a great way. And remember, this is a practice exercise to start thinking about how to use this resource to show students, colleagues, others, that text is a valuable piece of creating the data story. That numerics don't always tell the full story, and the text piece can bring those two together to really create that story that you want to tell. What I think is really cool about what you could do with this is take lyrics maybe from Stevie Wonder and from Metallica and see if you see a similarity in how in which they are writing songs. And then again, you can sketch it out with a cool Venn diagram and show the words that are here on Metallica's side, the words that are on Stevie Wonder, and then the things that cross over. That is a lot of fun. Let me see, just check the chat. Yeah, I like that, Crystal. That's a great way to put in about thematic analysis. You could also probably pull in some text from books that you may read on a regular basis. Like I'm thinking like Beverly Cleary, or you could pull something in from a common, oh gosh, what's the one we just read in middle school? A Long Walk to Water, where you can pull in different content from those. So we shared out just a little bit about what you saw in the resource. Just a plug that if you're interested in having more of these resources for your classroom or for information around data science and information, I have a newsletter that goes out once a month. It's just once a month, and it has usually a community connection, content, and things that are all put in to share more information. And I will put this link if you'd like to have that here. If you'd like to share more information about that. And then follow me on any of the our wonderful social media platforms at Dottie Rose LLC, which is the name of my company. And this is just a quick picture of me and my email if you would ever like to reach out to learn more information about how to continue to sketch a story and implement data in your classroom or across the board. Thinking about it in a creative and positive manner instead of thinking always in a punitive concept. When we are thinking about data to be positive and used for influence and to make decisions, it's really cool. Think back to the lyrics that were written for the songs and things, like how they take it and they shrink it down so it's easier for us to listen to and to compress so that we can listen to it on all of our streaming devices. And that wraps up my piece. Oh, thank you so much for everyone for being here and for sharing your time. It's a complete honor to be able to be a part of this conference and to share my passion around data and what I know how great it can be used in the classroom and beyond. Please send me a note or sign up for our newsletter. Or if you have ideas of other ways that you have used data in the classroom as a student in your work, I would love to hear about them, because any way that we can share the piece that it can be creative and used for positive is a plus for me. So thank you all so much for your time, and I look forward to hopefully getting to work with you all again. And I think I'm finished a few minutes early. Look at that, just enough time for you to be able to transition to our next presentation.